Hi guys. So I imagine you've been asking yourself because, Lily keeps talking about these renderings we're going to make. How do I make beautiful rendering pictures in Vectorworks? Here we go. Okay, so this is a project file that I've been working on in the Mex Theater, right? Let's actually activate Vectorworks. Wake up, baby. We're gonna fly over you. So I've thrown some scenery in there, and I have some lighting fixtures, right? My grid is up. All that happy stuff is enabled in this venue, okay? So we're ready to turn on some lights, okay? See what things might look like in context, all right? My lights all have color. That's going to be rendered by this guy, okay? And it's also got all of its focus points. Everything's focused where it needs to go. So I'm ready to start using the visualization tools to render a scene, okay? First thing I'm going to have you do, because some of the things you might want are hidden in menus that I have ditched at the beginning of the semester to streamline your Vectorworks. I'm going to be going to Tools, Workspaces, and switch into the Spotlight workspace, okay? Step one, it's going to take a second. It's going to think about that, and it's going to switch you into Spotlight because there are some tools in your view modes that you're going to want to play with when you set up a rendering. Okay, so that's step one. The next thing, what we've been doing, right? We've been using OpenGL to render a scene, okay? That is going to work the most quickly. So we throw it into OpenGL and it's like, a thing, a place, right? It's a little dark out there, but that's because we haven't done any render lighting yet, okay? So that's kind of phase one, step one of rendering. When we want this to be a fully rendered image, then you're going to change that OpenGL to a actual RenderWorks setting, okay? But let's first just turn on some lights, right? So I know I have these theatrical lights, right, in my light plot, but how do I turn them to be on would be the next thing that I would want to know, right? So to turn on a light, you need the visualizer tools, okay? Those are a palette we have not yet been playing with. So if you go to Window Palettes, you open this visualization screen, okay? All of a sudden, every lighting fixture in your document is in this little view here, okay? And the next thing you'll do is turn some of them on. Let's be on some lights by clicking in this checkmark. Oh look, see, it's working. You guys, it's happening. Some lights are turning on. Fun, right? Cute, adorable. So those three lights all turned on. They're a little hard to see. And again, that's because we are in our spotlight rendering mode of OpenGL. When we switch into, and this is going to take a second to do, when we switch our teapot into, for example, Fast RenderWorks, all of your surfaces are going to be grainy, but the lighting will appear for you. So we have to now wait for the teapot to spin as long as it takes. I know someone out there's barking, Leo. It's cool. We're just rendering in here. We're just rendering away. All right. So while that was rendering, I went and got a snack. Now I'm back. You see it's still kind of a blurry render, right? But it's showing you all of those pools of light, how they're overlapping, etc. Okay? If you change anything, it will re-render it. This will take forever. So we're going to switch back into OpenGL just for now, even though it's not showing us the lights the same way. And I'm going to show you a couple other things you can do, right? If you right-click on an individual light and edit it, you can see its color, you can see its brightness, you can see that it's casting shadows or not, or it's using lit fog, okay? You can change the fall-off distance, but don't worry about that, right? And you can change any of these other things, right? You can rename it if you have a name idea about it, right? Right now, their names are basically their channel numbers and then some random code, okay? That's it. So that's turning on that individual light, right? Turn it off, turn it on. So let's say you turned on the lights that you wanted, composed your cue, and now you want to save that as a look that you can come back to, right? You want to be like, here's the look, I want to save this cue, all right? You're going to do that in the Spotlight tools under visualization, right? And you will come in here to manage scenes. You will click on manage scenes. And when you do, it will open up a little window. And in that window, you can save this set of lights at their percentages as a cue, okay? So I have a cue 1 saved already. I'm going to save another cue. Let's call it 2, okay? Or Q2 or whatever works for you. Has an uptime and a downtime and a scene number, which is like a cue number. It does still need a name. And this will then allow you to go from one cue to another. So I can hit the go button and it's going to be like, you're going to do that if I make that bit. And I'm like, yes, do that, please. And it will change that look, okay, to match what I had turned on in scene 1, which was these 3 lights, okay? So that's the way you sort of set up a look, save it as a cue, okay? The next thing you want to know about is creating your visualization viewports, okay? So this is how we take all of this playing that we're doing and turn it into an actual like viewport rendering that I can then export as a PNG. So to do that, you're going to use cameras. There's this camera tool right here. I might make a separate layer for cameras in my design layers just to kind of keep them out of everybody else's mess. So maybe we make a new layer. We call it cameras or visualization or rendering or whatever, okay? Let's click OK. It's going to let us edit its properties. I'm going to set its elevation to 0 inches because it doesn't need to be floating above the floor. Click OK. All right. So my camera's layer now exists. Cute. Beautiful. I'm going to minimize this visualization panel. If I click on the plusy plus, there we go. It'll hide away just like that resource manager does. So now I need to get some cameras. I don't see them in there. They're going to probably be in this light bulb over here. So light bulb is visualization. There we go. Okay, so in your light bulb, you get your visualization, okay? So you have 2 options. You can either say camera match, right? Not the mask. The camera match tool, which will place your camera where you are, right? Or a Renderworks camera. So let's grab our Renderworks camera. I'm going to go into top plan view for now. So I can put this camera in like the place I actually want it. And I'm going to be like, I want this camera to be a person sitting in the back of the house right here. Okay. So I click and then I click in the direction that I want it to point. You can have the camera height be whatever you want. You can have the look to height being whatever you want. Okay. You can tell it things like its projection is a perspective projection. You can choose a film size, right, which is going to give you like what all of that sort of aspect ratio stuff is, right? Field of view, 65 degrees. DPI of, it's up to you. 150 is a good place to start because that'll be a pretty high resolution drop, like a pretty high resolution image that you can print nicely. You have all of this business as well, okay? And you can activate that camera view to see what it would look like. Click OK. Now you have this camera, right? It's showing you the field of view of this camera and the direction that it's pointing in. And then it can also you can create a viewport, right? So if I click activate camera view, now it puts me at that camera's view, which for some reason I'm floating up in the air. But if I drop myself down, life makes more sense. Let's make sure that that layer was created correctly. Okay, cool. So now I'm inside of the theater using that camera view as my place, okay? You can fine tune this. You can do all of these things to tweak your camera view when you're inside of it, Okay, and then once you like what the rendering output would look like, for example, if I like this, I can create a viewport of this. View, create viewport. Selected camera can be used for the viewport view. Yes, please. So linked to the camera, great. Or linked to a copy of the camera. Let's do that. Okay, okay. It's gonna create a viewport for me. I'm gonna put it on a new plate. So I guess it's going on 4 because that's the one I got. I guess I could also say a new sheet layer, please, but we're gonna just put it on 4 for the moment and see what it looks like. Scale it up to like 1/2 inch scale. Okay, let's see what that does for us. It might literally do this. Let's say this is what I want this actually to be, okay? So now I'm gonna say match current view. It's gonna adjust everything to match this view. And when I go back, hopefully this will save it. Yeah, great. So now I have this rendering look, which is much closer to what I want, okay? I can then go in and change the render itself, right? So right now the background render is wireframe, and I can change it to OpenGL, or if I want a really good one, I can change it to, see now it wants me to update. I can change it to an actual render mode, and it'll render it completely for me. I'm not seeing those lights on. That's because it's in OpenGL. If I wanted to see the lights on, I'd have to put it into a render mode, and then I'd see those lights being on. You can also choose things like your Renderworks background. So instead of this white, I might choose something else. Sky, night, right? And again, it's going to re-render this very slowly. Another thing that it will do, that Vectorworks will do, is if you give it like 2 scenes in that visualizer, so remember we go under Spotlight, visualization, scenes, you can animate from scene to scene, and it will create that transition from one scene to the other using the fade times that you gave it. So that's a quick way to do, like, here's a scene shift or something like that, as an idea. The other thing, hold on, one more thing. So, besides those theatrical lights in your visualization panel, you can also, and we're going to go back into, I don't know, some visualization layer, right? And we're going to go back into top plan view. So besides those theatrical lights, if you're a scenic designer in particular, you might not want to create a whole light plot in order to play this game. That's legit and fair. There are other lights that you can add, okay? So if you look up here, there's directional light, point light mode, spotlight mode, custom light mode, right? There's default direction mode, set direction mode. So if I'm like, I want a directional light, I want to set the direction, I do this, I click, right, on, off, cast shadows, all of that kind of stuff. You can use an emitter, whatever. You can choose a color from any of your swatches or from any other place. Okay. So there's a directional light, just a really basic default directional light. It's waiting for me now to point it at, I'm going to point it at the set. That's what I'm thinking is going to be the way to go. So now I have this light object, okay? So unlike all of your your theatrical lights, this is automatically turned on. All of its visualization properties are visible to us at all times. And it appears down here in the bottom, okay, of your list. So the things will appear sort of in the order you create them. So this one is the first, is light 1. It has all of the same properties that you would have for any kind of a fixture. And you'll notice if I go into a 3D mode, it has a 3-dimensional directionality. Okay, so it's a light that's kind of at the moment below the stage, kind of coming up from the bottom. Okay, I can move it up above the stage, and I can quickly point it at the stage, right? I can like get in there and mess with its little rotation angle, okay? And this is a way to like quickly throw a light on that will just blast light everywhere and make your set more visible. And again, now it's like way over here because when you work in 3D, you don't know what you're doing. However, if I turn this light on, which I have done, and I'm going to just turn off all of my other ones because they're not as quick to render. They have more shadows and stuff. It might crash. This might be too much. Sorry, computer. That's a lot. I know. It's going to be okay. Anyways, what will happen is I will turn off those other two lights. I will turn this light on, go into OpenGL, and you can see a very quick render of light that's coming basically everywhere in that direction, like the sun. So it'll still cast shadows and it'll very evenly light everything just for visibility's sake. So if you're a scenic designer, using those light options will probably be a quicker way to get to the end of your project and just have a kind of evenly lit, visible render of your show. I don't know. Vectorworks is kind of over me. I'm gonna stop recording and see if I can get back myself out of this problem.